How's it going, everyone? My name is Steve Cangiano. I'm Director of Product for Cmic. I'm joined today by Candace Francis, who is one of our product managers that's working on our analytics product. So we're really excited that everyone was able to join me today. I see that we have a good number of participants already. This is planned for 90 minutes, and this is one of the first of hopefully many showcases that we've planned for specifically for our cloud customers. Now, we wanted to kind of format this presentation or this webinar as, kind of half educational webinar, half tutorial, and giving customers an opportunity to submit their questions ahead of time, as well as answer some of their questions live as we go through the presentation. So I want to take you into the second slide to talk a little bit about our agenda. What we want to do is, I know that a lot of you have a lot of experience with Cmyc analytics already, but some of you might not. So I want to kind of paint a picture and just give a little bit of a background on Cmyc analytics, what it takes to run, how you can get started, and a little bit of background about the different ways that it can be used. And then once we finish with the background, we did put a kind of a request out to the cloud customers that are attending this webinar about a few weeks ago, and asked for some questions. And these questions, we were hoping to get like half a dozen or so of those questions together as case studies, and just give us those opportunities to show you some of the features to help answer those questions. So Candace has gone through all of the questions that were submitted. We kind of grouped the ones that were similar, and we put together, I think we have like 6 slides that go over 6 of the questions that we selected. And those 6 questions are going to be kind of our opportunity to go in and show the analytics tool or feature that helps answer those questions. And then she has some examples and some demos prepared to help address those. And then at the end, we're going to open it up for some Q&A. So if there's any questions that you guys have, what we ask you to do is there is a question section in the GoToWebinar platform. If you can go ahead and enter it into that section. While Candace is speaking, I'm going to be monitoring the questions. We'll mark the ones that we want to answer live. And hopefully we'll get to share as much information as possible with everyone today. And I'm looking forward to seeing more and more customers take advantage of our BI tools. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I want to talk about is how somebody would get started using analytics. And that's a question that probably comes up more often than not, like, how do I get started? Are there examples? Are there documentation? And it's funny the timing of this, because we actually have another webinar scheduled for tomorrow that's going to highlight a new feature that Cmic is pushing called Cmic Assist. And Cmic Assist is our new knowledge base portal. We've invested a ton of time into it to properly organize and make all of our documentation, all of our video assets highly available to all of our customers. And we've actually taken an opportunity to put together a getting started tutorial as a proof of concept in analytics, in Cmic Assist for the analytics tool. So I want to talk a little bit about how I would get started with analytics and what assets are available to me if I've never used it before as this customer. So I'm just going to switch over, and if you go to assist.cmicglobal.com, you're going to be taken to our Cmic Assist knowledge base portal. And this knowledge base portal is awesome. I mean, it's funny, internally, we've actually been using it for a couple of months already. And as of tomorrow, we will start directing all of our support portal traffic to this new knowledge base. There's opportunities for you to kind of drill into the different groupings of documents that we've put together. You can also just do keyword searches for whatever content you're looking for. Personally, I do keyword searches more often than not. I mean, you're feel free to kind of drill into the different sections, but most of the time you have a specific question, so you can ask that question and you can get started right away. So it's assist.cmicglobal.com. I will just kind of throw up that slide again, assist.cmicglobal.com. It is our new knowledge base portal for all things Cmic. We are going to continue to invest even more into our documentation, and we would love to hear your feedback. And if you want to hear more about Cmic Assist, we have a webinar that's actually coming up tomorrow that some of you might already be registered for. The reason that I'm pointing out Cmic Assist is there's a tutorial section that we're starting to add and invest more time into. So if you go into quick tutorials, you'll see that we've created a quick tutorial for analytics. And basically what the tutorial is, it's a grouping of articles that we've generated, but we've grouped them in such a way so that if you don't know anything about analytics, you can just get started, right? And like, what article do I look at first? What security setup do I need to have? How do I get started with some of the basics? And this really takes you through all of those steps. And there's a lot of really helpful videos that you can use along the way. And if you drill into some of the specific sections, you'll see we've invested quite a bit of time in developing even more video content for analytics. And in fact, we've invested time in developing video content for many of our different features, and this is just one example of it. So, as a kind of a general theme, we're going to be referencing a lot of articles in Cmic Assist during this webinar, and I highly recommend you check it out. Like I said, you can go in and search for specific content using the search bar, or you can go into our tutorial section and you can follow along step by step on how to get started. One of the first things that often will come up is people will say, hey, like, how do I access analytics? Like, what do I do? And the reason this is something that people ask is because we have this included in our standard menu as part of our 12. You'll see that there's a business intelligence section, and you can drill into analytics and you can start working with the tool. But that's not going to be on customers' menu that have decided to customize their menu. So if you've customized your menu and you're working with Cmic back since we were on B10X, you're not going to have this. So what we've done is we've put together this article that just shows you how you can go ahead and add the BI menu to your menu and add those components. You can also launch this as part of console if you prefer. So this is an article that we're linking in the chat. And again, it's all part of Cmic Assist. So if you can go ahead and take a look at that. If you don't see analytics on your menu and you want to add it and you want to get started, that's a great article to use to get started. Now, once you've added this to your menu or console, you'll see that there's an icon called Cmic Analytics. And when you select Cmic Analytics, it opens up our Canvas feature. Now, this is really important because a lot of customers don't know about this. A lot of customers are familiar with, Dashboard Builder, and they're familiar with going in and, selecting their data source and creating a new dashboard. But this Analytics Canvas was something that we rolled out about 1.5 years ago. And it's not getting the use that we kind of had expected. And I think a lot of that has to do with the discoverability issue, where a lot of people just don't know about it. So just to kind of recap, again, this article that we just linked in the chat, adding this standard menu to your tree view or console, that's going to give you these options that you see here. And by opening the Analytics tab, you're going to see this canvas. Now, why am I pushing the canvas? I'm pushing the canvas because this standard Cmic objects canvas is like your cookbook for analytics. In software development, when they release a new SDK or some new API, they have a cookbook, and they often will show, sometimes they call it a cookbook, and all these examples of the things that it can do. And the idea of this cookbook or this standard canvas is that we've collected many different types of dashboards and reports so that you can use these as examples of what analytics is capable of, right? So whether it's a simple GL balances report or maybe something a little more fancy like an AP invoice crosstab, you're going to have all of this available to you. And then you can also learn how they're constructed by actually going in and copying these. You can copy any one of these dashboards that are standard, and you can deconstruct them, you can edit them, you can change them. And this is a goal of Cmic's, that we're going to be pushing more and more in the coming months and over the next year or so, is that the standard canvas, we want to continue to add super high quality dashboards and reports that you might be able to just take that report and start using it. You may not need to customize it at all. We kind of had this idea early on that, like, if we build all these amazing reporting tools, people will build amazing things with them. They'll just do it right away. And some have, and some will continue to do so, but others are looking for us to kind of build more of a foundation, something that they can start with. And this standard canvas that you get when you open the analytics tool, That's exactly what this is. So you can go through all the different types of business areas that analytics covers, and we've built out quite a few different types of dashboards for you. Now, is this going to be all of the reports you want? No, but it's going to be a starting point. And oftentimes what you'll be able to do is you can take one of these examples and add the column that you want, change the filter, change the query, change it from a normal chart to a crosstab or something like that. That's all stuff that we kind of envision people will do from these standard objects. And you'll notice once you're in analytics, you have shortcuts to all of your major components. So if you want to go build a new dashboard, you can just hop right into Dashboard Builder right from here. Or if you want to go and build a new query, you can jump into Query Builder right from here. So it's a really nice place to get started with analytics, and I highly recommend you guys start here if you haven't done so already, and spend some time just scrolling through what's available, right? Like, okay, here's some information on AR invoices. That's interesting. I can see that we can do group totaling here. Maybe I want to move some of these columns around, but it's a really good sample as to what's possible with the analytics tool. Now, a couple of housekeeping items I will mention. Some of you that are going to add this to your menu and open up analytics for the first time, if nobody at your company has used analytics before, you are going to need to go and add the security roles to each of these dashboards. So when you're working with dashboards and you're creating new dashboards, you have to assign the dashboards to an enterprise security role. And users that have that enterprise security role will then be able to see those dashboards. One of the nice things about this canvas view is that you could obviously go into each dashboard and you can assign roles, but this allows you to mass update all of the dashboards that happen to belong to this column can be applied with the same role at the same time. So that saves you a little bit of time. So if you do go in here and you see, you open up one of these examples and it gives you a message saying you're not authorized, there's a good chance that your role, the role you have, hasn't been assigned to those dashboards. And the reason that we can't do that out of the box is that everybody has different roles and different business rules about who can see what data. So I will mention that that's something to keep in mind. And again, we do cover that in a lot of our getting started guides that's in the Assist portal or the Assist documentation portal. Okay, so let's go back over to my slides for a second and let's kind of go into the next section. So I wanted to highlight Cmic Assist. I wanted to talk about the analytics canvas. Highly recommend you guys take a look at it. I didn't mention this, but I will just quickly point it out. You'll see that there's a bunch of different canvas examples that have been created. So you can create different canvases that are going to be for different types of users or different groupings. Like it's basically just a launch page that's got all these different grouping options there. So I recommend you maybe use this as your home screen for all types of reports. Many of you that have used analytics before know that you can mount a report to your menu, you can put it on a tab of your console, but the analytics section is really nice that it gives you that chance to kind of organize things in a bit of a different way. Let's go over to my thing. Okay, let's talk about Catalog Builder for a second. There's a lot of discussion that's maybe not been super clear from Cmic about Catalog Builder and what is required to get started from a licensing perspective with Cmic Analytics. So the topic is, what is Catalog Builder and do I need it to create a dashboard? And the short answer is no. You do not need Catalog Builder to create a dashboard. One of the things that a lot of customers are asking us is, when they go and create a dashboard, if they didn't have Catalog Builder, what's that experience going to be like? And the reality is that they can create many examples. So I'll just say dashboard here. And if I select my standard Cmic default data source, this is the data source that ships with Cmic out of the box. And this data source has pretty much the entire product covered. And the intention of this is that we want to ship the product with as many of the standard business areas and standard joins as possible. And we constantly improve this default data source. And our intention is that all logical joins, all logical relationships between, business partner, contact record, on an RFI, all of those joins that might be necessary across the entire Cmic product suite, should be standard as part of the default data source. And when a customer is trying to build something in the default data source and they can't because they're missing a join or they can't find a piece of data that they need, we ask the customers report that into our support portal and let us know, hey, I'm trying to build something and I can't because I don't have this join. Are you able to help us out with that? And every time we release a patch, we're releasing improvements to the Cmyc default data source, and that is standard and available for all licensed customers that use Cmyc. I want to make that really clear. And I actually have a second tab here where when you're talking about analytics, when you get the product and you're a licensed Cmyc customer, you have access to the analytics canvas and all of the standard dashboards and reports that I mentioned. You have access to dashboard and query builder, all of the different visualization widgets, all the features like drill down and crosstab and grouping, exporting to Excel or PDF, and you get access to the standard Cmyc data source, which includes data from all of those modules. All of that is included with every licensed user of Cmyc. Now, what is Catalog Builder and why might I want to purchase Catalog Builder? And this is an important distinction. Again, all the stuff I mentioned, you can do all of that with a standard license of Cmyc, but we do offer an additional feature called Catalog Builder. And Catalog Builder gives you access to do a few things. And there's more things that I'm listing here, but it's probably the three most significant features of Catalog Builder. Reporting on custom fields. If you are adding custom fields, whether it be in ADF or in the enterprise screens or any of the stuff in field, there's going to be specific business logic in those custom fields. They might be a valid list of values, it might be a date field, it might be a number field, and we couldn't possibly know that logic, and we couldn't possibly know how that custom field would link to another custom field in a different area of Cmyc, or what that logic should be. So one of the things that is a very common example of what a customer might need Catalog Builder for is if you have a lot of custom fields and you want to include a lot of those custom fields in your analytics reports and your dashboards and queries, and there's some special join logic that is going to be unique to your company and how you use those custom fields. That's where Catalog Builder is going to be most commonly used or commonly required. Another advantage of Catalog Builder is you can do business area level security. And I just want to talk about what that means is when you're going in and taking a look at all these different business areas, right? So the standard default data source allows the person who is creating the dashboard to gain access to all of these business areas, right? All the business areas that are listed, including HR, including payroll, right? So in some companies, that's going to be one or two people that are the primary people that create dashboards for the company. So it may not be as important to lock down specific business areas because this is more of an admin user. But in cases where you might want to have more maybe project level employees, maybe a project manager, project engineer, would like to empower them to start creating their own dashboards, maybe you do want to add business area level security. So maybe you want to copy this data source and you want to assign specific security so that that project management user can only see job costing, subcontract management, and change management as an example. So that's kind of an important distinction. I mean, you can very easily assign security to an individual report, but the ones that are creating dashboards, if you are opening up creating dashboards to a lot of people at your company, you may want to have business area, and a business area is everything I'm showing here, right? Change management is a business area, job billing is a business area, purchase order is a business area. You may want to isolate those business areas to specific roles in your company, which would allow you to open up BI to a lot more users than you currently have. And again, that might be super valuable. It may not be necessary at your company, right? It may be at your company, it's you and one other person are going to be the primary folks that are developing dashboards for everybody else. And if that's the case, no problem, because the dashboard itself can be assigned to a role. The concept of business area security in Catalog Builder is only really relevant if you're going to open up the dashboard builder to a lot of people. And that's where you may want to get into that more advanced security setting. The other example is non-standard joins, and that's something that I kind of referred to in the first example on custom fields. So if you do have some custom fields and it's a reference key to something else that you also have as a custom field in another area, like we're not going to create those as standard joins in our default data source because that's going to be unique to your business and how you've implemented Cmic. So those are types of scenarios where you may be interested in getting the catalog builder added on to your account. So I hope that cleared up things a little bit in terms of what I can do as a regular Cmic customer and when I might need to consider purchasing catalog builder. So if there's any questions about that, please throw them into the chat. If you are interested in purchasing catalog builder, or maybe you've spent a little bit more time on doing that, definitely reach out to your account manager and they can connect you with the right resource. There's a couple of different options to purchase Catalog Builder that we may not have had a couple of years ago. So if it is something that you think you might need, definitely go check it out. But I want to make sure that it was clear that you didn't need Catalog Builder to go and take advantage of analytics. And I wanted to kind of put this chart together so that you had that idea of kind of what the two different options are. All right, so that's it for my portion. What we're going to do next, I'm actually going to hand it off to Candace, and Candace is going to cover. I think there was maybe 6 questions that we settled on, and I want to basically go through and we'll cover those 6 questions. Some of them, or maybe there might be more, but we'll cover those questions, and some of them might be just kind of more of a verbal response, yes, no, and kind of explaining the details. But some of the other ones are opportunities for us to show you some really nice features in the analytics suite. And then we're going to kind of wrap it up towards the end with more open Q&A with the questions that have been submitted. And we'll try and prepare some additional examples and give you guys more information. Thank you.
Perfect. So this is one of the first questions that have come in from the group regarding financial statements and Cmic analytics. So of course, within the analytics portal, you can definitely report on financial transactions, whether it's job costing or of course, general ledger entries. So we have the full visibility into seeing that information within the system. However, when we're thinking about balance sheets or income statements and standard financial statements, we do recommend that you use Document Formatter. We are currently working on extensive R&D as well as QA and testing out all the new functionalities in the 2.0 builder. But of course, we still have 1.0 available. So when it comes on to those statements, we definitely recommend to utilize Financial Document Formatter, and then standard reporting, whether it's job costing, rolling up any transactions, and just looking at standard statements, let's say a GL transaction listing. Those can be done in BI. So that's the best method that we would provide to our clients on their go forwards when it comes on to financial statements and analytical reporting today. So the next question was regarding direct access to the database so that a client can execute SQL statements. So when clients do purchase Premium Cloud, they do have access to the database in a test environment. So if you want to run select statements and review tables and so forth, you can do that with the Premium Cloud access, but that would be within a test environment that would be available to you. Joins and so forth on the front end, that's definitely available within Catalog Builder, as this was mentioned, but you will have a test environment if you did purchase a premium instance, so you'd have access to do the SQL statements that you might need to do to gather more information. So this was pertaining to looking at queries within the system. So I'm going to give you a good example of how we can go ahead and take a look at, let's say, a job cost breakdown by division, cost code, and then have a time frame variable in order for you to see how much cost may have happened within a specific time. So if we take a look here, I have a JC transaction listing. And similar to what Steve had mentioned today, we do ship the product with a variety of dashboards and queries. This one is included there. So you can massage the data, restrict certain things that you may not need, and make it your own. But within this transaction listing, what I ended up doing is I actually added a field for the start and end date. And how I did this, if you were to, I'm actually in editing mode. If you start off and you launch a dashboard, the first thing you do is go into editing mode. And then under the query, you have a few options. You have page filters and substitution variables. What I did is I added a substitution variable to the dashboard. The difference is I'm not calling a field within the database when I'm using a substitution variable. And to give you a quick example is if I'm using a page filter, I'd have to go into my field selection, grab a field from a business area and use that field as a filter. Whereas if I'm using a substitution variable, I can define what that variable means, and then I can add it as a filter to an existing field that I'm reporting on. So this is a job cost transaction report. As you see, I'm pivoting by company and job, and I can look at billing and cost transactions, or just cost in this example. Once I do that, since I'm looking at a date variable, I have a start and I have an end date. What I'm doing is I take the substitution variable that I created, and within the variable, you can see it's a date string to the right. And all I do is on that table, I then go into my filter option. So it's the second option within the properties. And on the lower end, you'll be able to see that I have a filter set up. So my filter currently is based on post date. So when we're adding a substitution variable, it automatically adds into the list of existing substitution variables that we have applied within the standard. So we do have some there ready for you, but of course you can create your own based on your use case. So in this case, I just said I wanted my date to be on or before my start date, and is on or after my start date, and is on or before my end date. So based on that being saved within the system, anytime I change my date variable, if I were to say start date, let me just go down because this is some older data here. Let's say January 2017, and then my end date is January, let's go down here, 2019. So you'll see that the data will change, and I'm only going to have data between that time frame. And that's how you can really massage the data, add some additional variables so that you can really filter it based on what you want. Of course, you can always pivot the date, but then you'll have a listing of every single day per transaction. This is the best way to see a holistic view based on a time frame, and it definitely will help you execute those reports and get the date or that granular data that you need based on a specific time frame in the system. All right, the next question that we had was, some dashboards take longer to load. Can this be improved? Of course, we have so much data in the system, and depending on how long you've been with Cmic, you may have hundreds and thousands of invoices, and if you're running an invoice query, that can sometimes be slow. So a way that we have applied different options for the end user to execute a faster and more optimal experience when they're looking at data is going to be through page filters, substitution variables that I just set up there. That's also another way to filter the data. And of course, you can have a dashboard with a pivot item already executed. And anytime that dashboard is run, it already has a filter set. So to give you an example of that, let's just go back into the system. So if you look at dashboard for JC, this is a variety of analytics or visualizations, I should say, pertaining to job costing. I have a page filter set up, so it's looking at my GL companies. Any client that's in a multi-company environment, they will understand the value of using this filter, and they can select multiple companies or just select one company they're looking to report on. That alone, if you use these filters, it would really create a lower level of data that we're going to be querying each time you have a page filter. These dashboards and queries can be saved with the filter intact. So if you are in a multi-company scenario and you know you only work for company, in this case 10, and that's the only data you'll ever need to see, you can save this dashboard as a copy, and this can always be your view. You're not having to filter through multiple companies. Same concept. If a PM is running this and they only work on 10 projects, you can create a filter for job and just have this execute your 10 jobs so you're not looking at everybody's job. So page filters are a great way to really make sure that data is filtered down and we're not querying every single thing within the database every time the dashboard or query is run. Apart from page filters, we also, of course, have the ability to use a table view if you're just looking at just a standard report and you want to filter down that data. This table view, you can always pivot items up. So in this case, if I were to remove company to give you an example of a pivot, the company code is here, but it's going to list all my companies unless I put a filter on the dashboard itself, similar to what I showed you earlier when we're looking at that date variable. I added a filter there. Or you can pivot the company up, and in doing so, when you save the dashboard, you can input a field within that company. So I've inputted a company, a fiscal year, a fiscal period. So every time this dashboard is run, it's only going to pull in data based on these fields that have already been inputted. So I'm not always going to be looking at everything that's hit my GL from the start of time till today. So that is a nice way to really have that information, keeping that information concise, so you're not running and hitting the database continuously trying to query up a lot of data. You can be very concise in your searches to get the information you want. And then let's move on to the next question here. So we had a specific question coming in about OCO. So this is on the project management side, so owner change orders. We do ship the product with different PCI reports that can roll into owner change orders. I had a little bit of time, so I did create one example of what I took from this particular question. Hopefully it hits. If not, there are so many different ways to execute this within the system. So the method I went when it came on to the OCO is I started off with a job billing contract, because the OCO, of course, the owner change order is going to be linked to the owner contract within the system. So if we're looking at a contract level, I can list off every single contract that's in the system, of course, but I'm filtering on one. I'm going to see all the contract details, the start and end date, who's the PM on that contract, and whatever relevant information you may need. Then what we have here is your original contract amount and then your current contract amount. This is my demo database, but when it comes on to your original, that would be your initial scope, and then your current would be your scope with any changes that I would typically predict would be done through a change order, which then would facilitate through to an OCO. So with doing so, I had these two values already available within my JC job business area. That folder had all that information. On the front end, we have added a few new features that allow users to create calculated fields and even create calculated columns. The data for change order amount is available in the system already, of course, but due to time restrictions, what I did is I created a calculated column. So there's a plus icon available here. That's where you can do calculated columns onto any table in the system. So with the calculated column, if I just go into edit to give you some insight, I called that column name change order. And all I did is I selected the original less the contract amount, that's the current contract amount, less the original, to give me the value once I validated it, to give me the change order value. So that's just the number that I'm assuming would be based on changes entered, because it's the difference between where I started and where I am today. Secondly, in order to then get that change order information, I added a drill down, because when we think about moving from a summary to a detail, typically the drill down function is the best bet, because sometimes the detail information is available in a different table and maybe there isn't logic for join between those two, and it's also a better way to query your data. So when we go from a high level and then we drill down further, the data will be retrieved a lot easier within the system just based on how the information is stored. So if we look here, we have a lot of different column definitions that we can utilize. So the drill in place is the one we're going to focus on today. So I did a drill in place to a change order listing, and it's just a table. Once you save that, you know that, okay, when I drill down on change order, I'm going to get the change order listing. However, to make sure I'm only getting the change order listing for a specific job, just gonna move this, on the job fields, you wanna make sure job is your drill down filter because you wanna filter the data. So I'm on New Kaiser Auditorium, so I wanna make sure when I do drill in place, the system will look at the job and that will be a filter for my, once I drill into that change order listing. So if I simply click on this item, I will now see all the change orders. And as you can see on the left-hand side, this is only going to be associated to New Kaiser Auditorium. And you can always go back and just look at your data here. So that would be the best way that I thought of on the fly to get from a contract level to a change order level. And why I started the contract is each time the change order is posted, there's that revised date that the user was mentioning. When you post a change order and the contract date is revised, that contract end date is available here. So I hope that does suffice to what they were looking for. However, there are a lot of different tables and views that we can use as opposed to starting with the contract and drilling all the way down. But there's different ways that we can go about it, whether if the information is already there and joins are already applicable, it's easily accessible to be retrieved. However, if there is something missing within a join to get that data from what you may be experiencing today, all we would do is just do a custom view for you, and those things are not being charged. They are R&D though, so the time frame when it comes on to getting things done will be depending on what is in the current queue. All right, let's go to the next question. So are we going to publish pre-built dashboards in the system? Which Steve, I believe, did touch on this earlier. 100%. We're always changing up what we have in Cmic today. To give you a quick example, I know we're going to discuss this a little bit later, but within analytics, if you take a look at the latest analytics canvas that shipped in our next patch, you will see that we have items for Crosstab, and that's some new functionality that we have in the system. And as you can see, in different business areas, you'll see, let's say, 4 dashboards or queries, depending on the data that's being rendered. But in HCM, we only have 1 currently that's standard. So those product managers within those groups are continuously working on figuring out what are the best types of views that would be available to that can be available to the client that would be beneficial for their day-to-day needs. So we do have some folks working in HCM to create a few more, just so that we can ship the product with valid data and valid information that you guys would find useful in order to manage your business. So long answer to that question, but yes, we will be definitely doing that, and we're continuously updating it. We are also sending out patch release documents. Of course, we have the standard patch release, but we have highlight documents that give you a quick summary of what we have released in a small cliff note, so you're not having to go through so many details or technical documentation. So that would be something to be aware of, that you could take a look. We have a BI business area, and it'll tell you when we've executed new business areas, and typically with a new business area, sometimes there'll be new feature sets for dashboards that you can take a look at. And that was the last question, actually. So another thing I wanted to touch on is some of the dashboards that I find that are very useful in the system. So if we take a look at the Canvas view right here, within project management, one of the ones that I think that is very popular is a current project dashboard. So when you think about this dashboard, if I just launch it, you're going to be able to see a lot of details associated to the project that you're logged into on the field side. So this will be very useful for PMs, site supers, whoever may be needing some insight on what's happening within their project. And we have a lot of launch portals. So launch screens allows you to, one, go into the specific record if you have questions on what's happening. So you have a lot of high-level views of what's happening within your project, what's going on, and then you always have the drill downs to execute more detailed information. I find this to be very popular because it's pulling in all the details on your project, and you have it within one view. And then whenever you need more definitive information, you can always drill down and open up that specific screen in the fields, so you can see what's going on within the RFI or meeting minute track. So this is one that I really wanted to mention to you folks. This dashboard, however, is a little bit different in the sense of, let me just edit it. So within our dashboards, we have a few layouts, flow and fix. If anyone has seen any of the webinars that we've done before, we had mentioned the difference between the two. The reason why it's so clean and like set up in different boxes and everything is executed based on just, it has a very stream, I don't even know how to explain it. The layout is very sleek is because the user is the one that can specify exactly where you want things to be. So this layout is very good. I typically like the layout structure of how it looks. However, something to be aware of, when you use this layout structure within the dashboard, let me just edit it. So fix, you're specifying where everything is. So you have to take into consideration the types of devices that are within your environment. If you have somebody that has a small laptop and then somebody that has a desktop, you have to make this layout to the smallest device that's being utilized within your business. Because if you don't, that person, if it's not fit to their device, information will flow off their page. Whereas if you never want to worry about any of these fields or any of the visualizations not showing up for any of your end users, I would recommend just use Flow, because we are accounting for every single type of device, and the system would automatically wrap the information for you. Whereas Fix, the wrap is not on, and you're the one that is specifying where everything is laid. But it just depends on what you want from a view. If you think that this view is really nice and you know the smallest device, then it'll be very easy for you to set this up and deploy it to your end users. And then lastly, I had one other dashboard I wanted to show you that I thought was very beneficial. And it's related to costing. So we have our AP collection dashboard. So when it comes on to AP/AR, we have all the different cost projections the AP or payables that are maybe due to any of your vendors. And then we have the same concept for AR when it comes on to money coming into the business. So these dashboards are very beneficial when it comes on to looking at whether pie charts and bar charts. We've used so many different visualizations in order for the end user to just view their data in different ways. And then you guys can decide what would be best for the business when it comes on to identifying what may be due to certain vendors and where you stand, or who really generates a lot of costs when it comes on to any costs coming through the business. We did have one question that came in that I think I don't see it on here, and it was related to cash flow reporting. So this will be the last item that I'll touch on before we get to Q&A, because I think it is very valuable. So let me just go in here. So I was working with a client called Affordable Solar, and they wanted to do cash flow reporting in Cmic. A lot of clients have been trying to figure out what is the best way to do that within the system. So what we've done for Affordable Solar is, when it comes on to cash flow, there's always going to be there's always going to be a date and time variable. Where do you pause? There's always going to be a date and time variable in order to get your cash projections. So to give you a quick example, I'll just open up mine and then I'll explain what we did here. And you guys as end users can see if this is something that you would like to implement within your business. So we started off with the standard dashboard. And if you see, they work heavily with purchase orders, subcontracts, standard job costing, and they're going to be using opportunity management to do revenue projections. So from a purchase order level, when we think about cash flow, you know that you may have a vendor that you're purchasing materials from. With that being said, that vendor will then have payment terms. But whenever you're purchasing, we do have the ability to report on the expected date. So what we did is we took in all the purchase orders purchases being ordered for a specific project or job. And then we took a look at when items were ordered, what is the expected date, and then we took the payment terms for that vendor to foresee or forecast when cash would be expected by, if all those things were aligned. So in order to do that, we did a few calculated fields as well as calculated columns to get cash expected date. Earlier, Steve had mentioned Catalog Builder and some of the features. What we've done on the front end for those folks who don't have Catalog Builder is we've allowed for the end user to actually do front-end calculations. However, it's only going to be associated to the dashboard that they're working on. It's not going to flow through. It's not on the database level. So if I grab here, I'm just going to go into PO to give you the example. Cash expected date is a calculation. For those folks who are not too technical, you could definitely reach out to Cmic, or you can even just Google just standard select statements on how to do regular calculations. But dates are everything when it comes on to cash flow, and how we were able to execute this for it to work well is we needed to have those specific dates in the system to calculate when cash would be due. And the dates we're using is the purchase order date, and then we have term codes. So depending on the term code for that vendor, let's say it's net 30, it's going to add net 30 to the date that those particular materials were expected on site to give you a projection of when cash would be due if everything was delivered on time. So it's just to give our clients just some sort of view of when things will be due from a payables perspective, and then same concept for receivables. Right now in the system, we have opportunity management. For those folks who are not using it, that's something that could be deployed if this might work for you from a revenue projection. But when you have an opportunity, you can always identify the potential revenue that would be spread across that opportunity during the course of that project. So every month you can have some insight on what the potential revenue would be based on the different curves that we have available. So now this client will be able to see, okay, how much am I spending, whether it's on purchase orders, labor, or just regular job cost transactions based on a time, date, and payment term level. And then how much money should I be getting every month based on that opportunity and the projection that I've made from a cash when it comes on to revenue coming into the business over the course of the project. Hopefully this wasn't too complex, but really it's really about reporting on times and dates, and then being able to then overall project when you would need your cash, whether it's cash in or cash out for the business. So we're going to move over to the Q&A portion. See here. I know that some questions have been coming in. Not sure if Steve's been answering, but I will open it up.
Hey, Candace, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I did get a chance to answer pretty much all the questions that came in. Thank you everyone that did submit them. And we're going to open it up for continuing to have questions that came in. One of the questions I wasn't able to answer, I think I know the answer, but I wanted to confirm with you. Alexander Wayne was asking about drill downs to images from like an AP invoice query. I know we can do it, but do we include that as part of the standard catalog, or does that need to be built manually for each customer?
We included
I know we construct the URL, but is that standard for the cloud?
Yes, it is. So we've included it. What happened, I'm not sure if this is where this may have stemmed from. We had some invoices that were showing up and some were not, depending on the type. So we did most recently change that to make sure all invoice types, whether they're AP, miscellaneous, or registered invoices, all were there. And that is going to be available in the standard. So the image link has been updated. So when you drill down, you will have that main page of the invoice available to you once this loads. So that is included in the standard, yes.
So, all right, so that's good. And if we don't get any more questions, then let me just look at the bottom here. Okay, so there was a question here from Craig Daniel. We need a single data source that has both posted and unposted PCIs. I think in a scenario like that, Candace, you let me know if you agree. I think we would just want to, deal with Craig one-on-one and just discuss, like, does that make sense to be included in the standard data source, or is that something that he would have to turn on with Catalog Builder? It's
something that has come up. It's just the way that the views are defined right now. we could do it. I did mention this one offline to Jim Craig. I think you were one of the people that were a part of this initiative, and it's something that can be done, but we just want to make sure the view is optimal. Right now it's not there yet in Cmic. Once that becomes an R&D initiative, then that would be something that we would release in the standard, as long as it is an optimal view and it's not very slow, because you want to make sure the end user experience is good.
Okay, sounds good. All right, there was another question, Ellie followed up. It says she doesn't understand why we would provide SQL access to test only we need for production. So I want to spend maybe a minute and go in a little bit more detail on this. So this, as you know, Cmic has a cloud-based offering. This is a SaaS product, and we do not offer direct access to the database in production. Now, we do have customers that want to be able to write their own reports. So they have some, when I say reports, specifically Jasper reports. So we have some customers that have some experience or maybe have some Jasper developers on staff and would like to be able to allow them to write their own custom reports instead of having to just contract Cmic to do them. So with the premium cloud subscription, we give our customers access to a test database, which is a clone of our production environment, for the sole purpose of allowing them to write their custom reports in Jasper if they have the experience in-house. And then what we do is we will broker those reports before they go into our production database. We need to make sure that those reports that are being written, which contain select statements, are not statements that would negatively impact the performance of our production environment. I'm sure everyone, that would like to do it is a great developer, had lots of skills, but we need to ensure that our production environment is always working, working, in the best possible way. And we can't risk anybody putting a poorly constructed report with a bad select statement into our environment that would ultimately consume more resources than it should. Which is why we've set up this premium cloud program, and the premium cloud subscription is an additional fee that a cloud customer can choose to pay, which gives them direct access to write reports in our test environment. They can test them out and run them in our test environment, and because this is a test environment, there's no impact on production, so that's fine. They can make sure the reports run properly, and then Cmic will then take a day, half a day, and properly broker that report, analyze the select statements that are being used, and make sure that that report is efficient as it can be before it gets published in production. That's the logic behind where we are with our access to the database. If that is a problem, I do want to mention, all cloud customers can reach out to their account manager and they can have a discussion about potentially moving to our privately hosted or a single instance of Cmic. Obviously, there's a considerable cost to make that transition, but it is something that's an option if having direct access to the database is absolutely required for you guys to complete your day-to-day operations. Okay. So actually, Candace, can you take this question from Dean about AP invoice query?
For some reason, my question thing is not coming up.
Okay, I can just read it for you.
Yes.
So this question is from Dean. The question is, AP invoice query, does it show non-job related invoices?
The current?
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm asking you, if you're speaking about what's shipped with the product, it's showing everything, but you can choose to, once again, do a pivot or do a filter to make sure that the AP invoice is not associated to a job. So you do have that option, and that would just be a filter option, because AP invoice is going to pull in everything, and then you can filter down the data to make sure that they're not related to jobs, for example.
Perfect. Okay. Great. Okay. All right, so what I'd like to do is, and we'll leave the questions open, but I actually thought that I might take an opportunity to walk you through something that came up very recently, like as recently as this morning. Customer was asking for some help creating a manpower dashboard out of our field product. And it involves a lot of different components of BI, and I thought it might be kind of a cool thing to walk through from start to finish. So we'll keep an eye on the questions. Candace, if you just want to monitor the questions, anything comes up that's pressing, let me know. But I'll take 10, 15 minutes and just kind of walk through how I would create that kind of a dashboard.
Okay.
So let's go. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. 1 second. Okay. All right. So starting from the analytics page, just want to make sure that my screen's being shared properly. It is. So starting from the analytics page, if I wanted to create this type of a dashboard, the specific request was, I want to create a dashboard that's going to show manpower trending over time for a specific project for a specific time period across all vendors. That was the request. So I went in earlier this morning and kind of walked through some of these steps. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new dashboard, and I'm going to do this with a standard data source, so I can kind of show what's possible. So I'll call this project manpower graph, and then I'm going to select the standard Cmic data source. So this is available to everybody that's starting out using our analytics tool. And I'm going to start working with let's do the line chart first. So I'll start with the line chart. And in the line chart, what I'd like to show is I have a couple of key data points that I'm interested in. So after selecting the visualization that I want to work with, I'm going to select the up arrow on filters and then drill into my business areas. Now, everything I need is going to be field related. So I'm going to go into the project management business area. The first thing I want to do is I want to grab my project name because I want to be able to filter by project. So maybe I want to have like this default to my current project, the one I'm on currently, or maybe I want to be able to filter by project inside the dashboard. Either way, I want to grab my project name so I can use that for some of my filters. And then you'll notice that down here, a bunch of these folders are showing as available, but some of them are not. And this is highlighting the existing joins that come out of the box. So I'm going to go in and grab, let's grab daily journals. So let's see here. I'm going to go and grab, where is my daily journal? Daily journal headers. Okay. Now you'll notice that daily journal headers is available, but some of the details below are not. These are basically child objects of the daily journal header. So I need to bring the daily journal header in first before I'll be able to expose manpower, right? So I'll bring daily journal date in is one of the key pieces of information I need. And for this graph, I think I only need date. I think that would be pretty much everything I need. And you'll notice now that I brought date in, the joins to the child records, which are the additional tabs, those are now available for me to bring those data points in. So I'm going to go to tasks. I know it's not called manpower, but it's just the name that it had when we first pushed it out. So the task tab is manpower. I want to bring in, let's see, I'm going to bring in vendor code because I want to print the vendor name in my report. I also want to bring in number of hours, total hours, because that's what I want to graph over time, right? So I'm going to have vendors, total hours over date. That's good. And now I'm going to get vendor code here, but I want to get the actual vendor name. So the vendor name, because this is a normalized database, the vendor name is not in this table. It's actually in its own table called business partners. And you see that this is highlighted. So because I selected vendor code, I now can go and grab my business partner name is what I'm looking for. So to do this, you obviously have to kind of know some of the structures, but you can see a lot of the joins are all done for me. I didn't have to create any joins to get all of these different data points across 1, 2, 3, 4 different views in the system. So it's a nice and easy way to do it. And again, this is all the same data source that you guys are shipped with the product as standard. So let's go ahead and pull all those fields in. The first thing that I want to do is I want to bring my value in. So I'm going to bring in my total hours. The series is date. Actually, I want to do business partner as my series. And then I'm going to group by date. Okay, now I'm going to apologize. My data is not very nice in this test environment. But once I start narrowing it down by project and stuff, I think it'll start looking a little bit better. But as you can see, I've created a line chart that's showing me total number of man hours broken up by business partner over time. All right. So there's a couple things that I may want to do here. You'll notice that this is, starting with 2011, and it's going all the way to 2013. So I need some filters for this data, right? So the first thing I want to do is I want to add a filter, and I'm just going to add a project filter just to show you how the steps would be, but it's not 100% required, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. So I'm going to insert a filter at the top, and I want to insert that filter, and I want to just have it by project. So I'll do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and pull in project. I'm just going to grab project name. That's all I need. And because this table has project name in it, when I apply a filter by project name, so I'll say filter by project name, right? I now have a drop down that lets me filter by all of my projects, right? So if I go filter by the JW Marriott project, you'll see my data is still not great, but a little bit better than you saw before. And again, this is just one of our internal environments that you're working for. So now I'm filtering my data by project, and this is an optional step, as I mentioned. If I wanted, I could actually not use this filter, and there's an option in here that says use current project only. So if your intention is to use this graph and you want to maybe throw it into Cmic field, right? You can decide that you want to throw it in the Cmic field, and the user is going to be on a project already, so we don't want to prompt them a second time. So this lets me go in and actually say, just show me the data for the current project. The user doesn't have to select it. But if this was more of like an executive query, then that's going to be something that would be kind of helpful, that they can just change the project whenever they want. Now, the next request was, I want to be able to filter things over time. Now, there's a few different ways you can do it. I'm going to do it with substitution variables, right? So I'm going to go in and enter a substitution variable, and this is going to be for a date. So I'm going to call this start date. And the format is, there's an example here. So if you do want to have two words, just put an underscore between them, no spaces. So the identifier is start date. I'm just going to call it start date. The data type is a date. And that's all I have to do here, right? So I have my variable for start date, that's good. And then I'm gonna add another one for end date. So let's add a substitution variable, same thing, end underscore date. And again, this can be anything, it's just a name I'm giving the substitution variable. Okay, there's my end date. This is going to be a date, and we'll leave the rest. Okay, so now I have my date parameters. Now what I need to do is I need to apply these date parameters to this dashboard. So I'm going to go to filters, and I'm going to apply my filter by date. So I'm going to go into daily journal headers, bring in the filter, and I'm going to apply my substitution variable. So I'm going to say the date is on or after my start date. So I'll say is on or after my start date. And you'll see I have all of my substitution variables I just created here. So I'll say it's on or after my start date. And then the other is going to be and, because we will basically have two conditions here. So it's on or after my start date, and is on or before my end date. And you'll notice that there's other substitution variables that we ship out of the box. So like start of the week, today's date, end of the quarter, current project, or a seek, contact code. There's a bunch of things you can use for these substitution variables. They're really awesome. So now that we have all this, I'm going to hit OK, and this is going to go blank because I don't have any values in here. So let's go and say I want to go from, I don't know, from 2019 till today, maybe, right? So now I have my date parameters that's organizing everything by date between these two dates. So that's an example of using a couple of different tools. So a relatively straightforward visualization chart that's organized by total number of hours. The legend is going to be comparing business partners. And then I may want to group by date, which is what I did here. I have my filter parameter by project. I also have my two custom variables, which are my start and end dates. I also have another option is maybe I want to limit it to a particular vendor. So if I want to maybe not show everybody at the same time and limit it to a vendor, I can go and add another filter at the end and say, you know, I want to narrow this down by vendor. So let's go into project management. I'm going to narrow this down by business partner name. So I'll bring my business partner name in, filter by business partner. Actually, I need to bring in one other field here. Actually, so you see how I'm getting all of my business partners here? This is a pretty common one. So I'm getting all my business partners here because my filter doesn't have project listed here. So it's not being filtered the same way that these ones are by the project. So I need to go and add project here. So I'm going to go and add. Actually, I have to go backwards here. So I'm going to go back, start from the beginning. I'm going to add project. Right, so we're going to get project. I'm going to grab daily journal header. I shouldn't need it. Actually, I do need it, yeah. So I'll explain why I'm doing this. So I need daily journal header because I need to then get the tasks, which is then going to give me my vendors because they're all joined together. So let's go grab my, I'll grab journal ID. I just need one field. So now that I have journal ID, I'm going to go grab my tasks and I'll grab vendor code. And then I'm going to go and grab my business partner name. Okay, so now this is now filtered to only show the vendors that belong to the current selected project. So a couple extra steps there. That one actually wasn't quite as intuitive. Sometimes that's just something that you have to know. And again, you get better and better over time. Our support team is awesome. They do a really good job helping support these things. But now I've basically created, you know, my line chart with my date parameters. I can filter by business partner name if I want. It's only showing me the business partners that are available for this project. And then if I want, I can also maybe add a table at the bottom to visualize the same data points. So one of the things that's a handy feature is if you want to go and add a new visualization widget, select the one you're currently working on, hit create new visual. It'll throw it over there with the same fields. I'm going to also add a line break in here and then drag it to the other side of it. Let me just try and get this around here. No, I want to flip this. There, okay. So I put a line break in there so they end up on different rows. And then I'm going to take all those fields that were just brought in. And maybe I want to grab a couple of other ones, but I'll just start with this. So I'm going to bring in date. So it's going to show me all the daily journals that are being displayed in this graph. I want to show business partner name, who submitted it. And maybe there's some other data points that I want to include. So I'm going to go and add a few more. So let's go and add, let's grab like number of workers. Maybe I wanted to display that in the table below. Number of man hours, activity, and notes. So I bring a few more in. And now I have my vendor code, how many workers were on the site, how many hours, what they were doing, any notes that were submitted, and then their total hours. So I got all that. Looks good. Now, okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Now, if I want to maybe add one more thing so that the user can drill into the specific record that they're working on, one of the things you'll notice with the standard data source is that almost all of them have like a launch option. So if you go into daily journal headers, scroll down to the bottom, you'll see there's a button that says launch, and that is a drill down option. So now that I have this drill down option, oops, I don't think I saved. So let's bring launch in under headers. And now I can drill into that specific daily journal record. So there we go. So now I kind of created, you know, a pretty nice manpower report, and I can go ahead and save it. And I'll assign it to my master role. And there we go. And again, you can go crazy with it, but I wanted to create that as an example of the different things that you can do with BI, all with the standard data source, with this a little bit of help from, you know, the different tools that are available. And by the way, all of the things I just did are available as some tutorial videos, right? So page filters and substitution variables. That's a video that we added here. There's some drill down options, basic dashboards, different layouts. We've created a lot of content to help you get started with all this, all these different tools. Okay, so Candace, I see we have a bunch of questions that were there. Anyone that you think we should try and start answering with the next 15 minutes or so?
The last question that I saw on mine was related to the AP one. I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
So there's quite a few.
I don't know
that
why it's not updating. I'm sorry. I was sitting here staring at it, but nothing is.
No problem. I'll go ahead and go through them.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go to. So Tim Ashman mentioned, does the AP query use the header of the job field or the details job field?
The AP, does the AP query use the header, the detail? I think I would have to double check. Let me just look at it right here.
Okay.
It usually has both. So detail is going to be on the record level, like where you're going to have all the transaction information, and the header would be like the vendor information. So typically we have both of those because we're pulling in maybe the vendor code from the header, but okay. I can double check that.
So you know what, while you're working on that, we'll just make a note of that one, and we can get back to Tim directly if you want to give him that information. Okay, I'm just trying to pick here. So there's a question from Matt. I just want to see if I understand this. So is the second table view available? I see it in the list of visualizations on Steve's screen, but it doesn't show up for me. So let me just open it up and see the second table. Ah, okay. So I think that this is from Matt. I think he's talking about the crosstab option, and that's something that is worth mentioning. Our cloud environment is going to be updated with the latest patch sometime in the next month or so. And we're just going through some QA process to make sure everything is good. And one of the features that we're going to be shipping is Crosstab. And you can get a lot of great information about it in Cmic Assist. So if you go to release notes, patch 13.2, you'll see all the things that are coming in the new patch, which will be released in cloud. We're hoping, again, within the next month or so. And if you scroll down and look at analytics or business intelligence right here, there's a section for BI dashboard and catalog builder enhancements. So there's a whole detailed description of the crosstab visualization, what it does, and some additional features that we've added, things like supported context variables, I guess we added to that list. So that's why you're seeing something a little different than me. I was showing you a slightly newer version of the system than you guys have, but you will be getting crosstabs very shortly, and we're going to be shipping a bunch of additional crosstab samples inside of the standard objects canvas. And if you want to read more about it, go ahead and check out Cmic Assist. Okay, I'm just trying to find another one that's good here.
The calculated field one is pretty good for Tim. Does the calculated field feature allow calculations between different views yet? So yes, on the front end. By the front end is when you're in Dashboard Builder or Query Builder, and you're looking at if Steve were to go to the Fields menu. That's calculated columns, but go to the Fields, and the first arrow, no, the first arrow, not the second. The first arrow, you can use all folders, and if you were just select that, and then if you go to PM projects, the arrow to the right, all the way to the right, and a new calculated field. And if you look, if you select the drop down, you'll see that you can do calculated fields across every single, on the second one, that's every single business area that's over onto the right. So even if there isn't logic between the two, you can create a calculated field on the front end between different views that have been selected within the fields. So that's
Okay,
pretty neat.
so any of the fields that you've brought into your widget, right? So any of the fields that are on the right, you now can write calculated columns, calculated fields between those. Nice.
Exactly. And they can be across
Nice.
different business areas. So yes. So
Cool.
if you had like right now, yours is a good example of just everything in the same business area, but imagine you have job costing in here, you had PM, you had AP, you can write a calculated field across all those different areas.
Okay,
Okay.
that's great. Do you see any others, Candace, that you want to answer? Some of the more detailed ones, Candace is a little bit better suited than I am to answer.
Yeah, right at Jasper. Oh, that was earlier. Okay, that was earlier. Yeah, I think we got them all. And to your point, Tim, when we're talking about the AP query, if you're still on the line, we're looking at the invoices and JC jobs for the one that's executed in the default dashboard. It's not AP headers, just AP invoices is what we're using, and JC jobs. So you can remove JC jobs since you don't want to report on job-related invoice. We brought that in, so that's what you would do if you just wanted for that other question related to job-related ones, just remove the job business area and don't plot job within the table. Apart from
Candace,
that,
there was one more, Candace, I thought let's see if you can answer it. It's how do you do a calculated field when using UDF? So does that mean they have to go into Catalog Builder and do a little bit of work there, or
that's
what
the
would be involved?
limitation. So you cannot do calculated fields on UDFs today.
Okay. Okay.
That would, what we just had that come up, and what we'd have to do is do a custom view to report on that UDF within the view, then you can do it. Because Catalog Builder doesn't look at UDFs in that fashion where you can do the calculation there. I actually just
Okay.
came through. But it's
Okay.
possible, so you can do it. We would just have to write you a view to report on that item in order to pull it into analytics.
Okay. So if I could maybe paraphrase that a little bit for Cassandra, I mean, depending on the significance of the report with this UDF, you might be able to engage Cmic to do a little bit of services for you to give you access to that UDF as a bit of a workaround. Now, it is something that we might roll it as a feature eventually, but at least in the short term, if you need that report and it's kind of urgent with that UDF, I would recommend submitting a ticket to support, and we can maybe explore having a custom view created for you that might work and basically give you a solution in the short term. Anything else, Candace?
So for Ellie, maybe we'll have to have a call because that's pretty detailed for me to see what you mean of what's happening when it comes on to field availability. And sometimes I need to see an example. You can send me a screenshot and I can always send you a Calendly link and we can have a quick chat about that. And then the last one, I'm not really sure what Hugh Campbell, can we make our own referenceable tables, i.e. equals, like change the naming? I'm not sure what Hugh means either, so I may need some elaboration on that one. Unless, Steve, can you dissect that from Hugh Campbell?
Not off the top of my head. We might need to regroup and maybe reach out to Hugh directly, and we can work through it. There's a good question from Trudy that others might have that maybe, Candace, you want to go ahead and read that one?
So I have Catalog Builder. What is best practice to write dashboards using the Cmic data source versus a clone created by our company? So we typically always say to utilize the clone due to the fact that we recommend that you don't modify the Cmic default, so you'll always have the standard of what was shipped and the joins that we recommended. And now actually the benefit of, before there was a little bit of a gap between the two, you having your clone and having the Cmic default and not knowing what you might have been missing. We have a new feature where you can compare the two, so you can always know what's missing between the two. So there shouldn't be any limitations of using the clone anymore because you always have that comparative data to see what you might be missing, why something might not be working, or what you want to maybe add if we've made any new changes. So I think that would be the best practice, is to clone and write it off of your clone data source, since that's going to be all custom to what you need as a business.
Excellent.
Okay.
And again, I think Hugh has to follow up as well, but I think what we should do is just reach out to him directly and make a note for that, Candace, and we'll sort out what the options are.
Yeah, so I think there's a few folks that I'll reach out to and we can have a chat and just see the examples that you guys are mentioning in these questions, and we'll go from there. Hopefully that'll be good.
Awesome. Yeah, let us know the feedback in terms of the format of the meeting. I mean, this is one of the the first ones we've done like this, where we kind of took questions ahead of time, prepared some content, and then opened it up for some general Q&A. If you get to see more content like this, let us know. And I hope you guys also take advantage of Cmic Assist. We're really trying to push it, if you hadn't noticed. So hopefully you guys find it valuable, because we're putting a lot of work into this content. And if you are finding content, or if you're not finding content you're looking for, let us know. Like, hey, I was looking for something here and there's no articles or content on it. You know, reach out to your account manager, reach out to me, Candace, anybody, and just let us know what we're missing, because we want to keep generating as much content as we can. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time, everyone, and we'll be in touch. Hopefully, we'll have another one of these sessions coming up soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.